applications, what they are, how they work, and how you can use them in your platform to deploy websites, apps, or intranets. Yeah. So to start with, I'm in my account, and under apps, I'm going to click user interfaces, and we're going to click new user interface, and I'm just going to choose this basic website template, and it's going to ask us to whether we want to create an application for this new interface that we're making. I'm going to leave these both ticked, and what that's going to do is we're going to create two separate applications. One that's production, one that will advertise people and they can visit, and one that's staging, so that we can kind of preview any changes and get feedback before we actually launch it out to the public. So if I click confirm, what that's going to do is create a new website for me using that basic website template, and it's also going to spin up the two applications. So here's our website, and if I click close on this and go to applications, you'll see that we'll have two applications. We've got our basic website, and we've got our basic website with staging in brackets and some default URLs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this URL, and it's going to show us what the production website looks like. So there's the template, really basic. And if I click the staging application, we're going to see what the staging website looks like. Now, they're both going to be exactly identical at the moment. But what I'm going to do is show you some of the settings that we can change to show you why we can create multiple applications that point to the same interface. So to start with, let's go to our interface. We'll open it up again, and we'll make some changes. So let's just change this header. We'll click up here, and we will make the background dark gray, and maybe the colors of the links can be white, something like that. Okay, so we'll hit save, and let's click publish. And what I'm going to do is click production ready, and we will publish this out to production. Ready to go live, and we'll hit publish. And you'll see that because I marked this production ready, we've got a ready to go live milestone, and you can see both applications are going to render that version of our interface. Now let's say we have a brilliant idea and we want to change this to purple. We can change it to purple. I'm going to click publish, and what I want to do is get feedback on this color first. So I'm going to call this header with purple version, and we'll click publish. And what I didn't do is tick production ready. So you can see here now we have a newer release that's been published, and it's not marked as a milestone. And you'll see that the staging application is pointing at that, whereas the production application is only pointing at the milestone. So if we click the staging link and we go up here, you'll see that the staging one is purple. So I can share this link to people and say, give me some feedback. What do you think? Whereas if I visit the production one that's been advertised out there, that's still got the gray header. So you can have two different versions, and the application is going to point to whatever the application's kind of been set up to do. So that's kind of one of the basics of one of the basic features of the application, is that you can add an interface to it and you can adjust some settings. But let's go back to the application section of our dashboard and look at some of the other settings. So if I click the basic website over here, this is my production application. You'll see here that I can change the title. I can also change the domain name. I can add my own custom domain name, might be like website.com or something like that. And in another video, we'll show you how you can point your DNS there and add SSL certificates and things like that. I might also have redirect names. So I might want www.website.org to go to website.com as well. So you can add multiple domains. We also can lock the website with a passcode. So I could put something in like 1234 here, and then when someone tries to access the website, it'll come up and actually ask you to put in 1234 before you can access the site. So you can lock off those things as well. We can enable whether or not users can sign up and create accounts in this application, and also whether they can log in. So if we were making like an internal intranet, we might want it so that people can, you have to sign in with a quick username and password to actually get access to the content. And then there's a couple of other things like the shortcut favicons. Here's where it's selected which interface we're going to render inside this application. And we can also choose how this application should pick which version of the interface. So we can either have it so that it shows the current working draft. So literally while you're working on it in the builder, this application will show what's happening. Or we can choose the latest published version, just which is what we had our staging app set to. Next time you publish something and you say like it's ready for someone to have a look at, this will show the latest one. Or we can say the latest production milestone, which means that it will only show the most recent release that's been marked as a milestone. Or we can choose a specific version and we can actually pick the exact version. Maybe we want to lock it to a release that we published 2 months ago, or roll back to something. I think this was set to production milestones, so we'll just leave that. And we also have the option to force SSL. So if we don't have an SSL certificate and we have a custom domain, we can also allow HTTP requests to access it or not. This is going to be on by default. And there's a bunch of other metadata and information as well, but we'll go to the second tab, which is permissions. So each application kind of works as its own user. It has its own static application access token, and here we can set the permissions as to what this application can load from the database. So you can see here we've got a basic website visitor role, and by default this will have a few things like it can view some articles, it can kind of view audio files and files, look at images and see the width and height of those images, and some videos. Now you'll notice it can't load people's information from the database and other sensitive information, but if we wanted to, maybe we wanted to create an app that can load that stuff. Here's where we can adjust all of those things, and we can add multiple roles in multiple different scopes. But one thing to keep in mind is if our application doesn't have any permissions, if we remove this, it won't be able to load any information that isn't public. Like it won't be able to display images and things like that without appropriate permissions. And yeah, so what we could do is we could say on this application, we could set it so that one version of the interface can load content from a certain scope, and then another version of the interface, another application using the same interface, could load information from a different scope. So we can reuse things like that as well. That's the basics. If you read the documentation, there's also a couple of other useful tidbits and information, and we'll record more videos going through applications in more detail soon.